Hello and welcome to Milestone Mindset Live. Our show today is Reputation, Reviews, and Revenue. And I'm here with Cecelia Henderson, the founder of WSI Marketing Edge. Cecelia is live from New Jersey. I'm live from Arizona. And we have guests today who are going to be joining us from all over the country. It is live, and I had a few little time zone technicalities, but here we are. Hopefully, we're all broadcasting where you are. And Cecelia is joining me today because we are both marketers. We both have a strong commitment to having a strategy, online and offline. And Cecelia spends her time primarily helping people with their online presence. And I'm going to let her explain more of that herself. But one of the big things that is often overlooked is the reputation management component of your branding. And I'm going to say guilty as well. And reviews are a big part of that. And they both directly result in revenue or can hurt that opportunity. So, Cecelia, as you know, we are talking to audiences today that are primarily entrepreneurs, small businesses, and nonprofit leaders. So I would love for you to tell our audience a little bit more about you and your journey to this point.
Sure. Thank you. First of all, thank you for having me here. Enjoy talking to you just in the run up to having this, and appreciate being live on Milestone Mindset. So I, similar to you, come with a long marketing background. I spent many years in corporate marketing, and throughout those years, there would be moments that I would say to myself or have a fantasy that I'm sitting in my own office doing my own thing and not dealing with people managing me, but putting the effort that I'm putting into what I was doing at that time into my own initiative. And I got the opportunity to do that. So that is how I founded WSI Marketing Edge. What I'm doing is I'm leveraging my marketing background, and I'm focused in the digital world because, of course, that is the expanding world that we're growing into right now. And also because it's one of the areas where you can actually measure the impact that you have. So it really was a wish come true in a sense, founding WSI Marketing Edge.
I also used to, from a young age, envision having my own business. My dad had a small business in construction and carpentry, in addition to being a firefighter. So I really had a strong model of how he ran that business, saying what he was going to do, delivering it exceptionally, and the phone kept ringing. And that also, if there was online reviews back then, he would have gotten 5 stars. And so that was all word of mouth, which is really a way that we should think about this process, although we have a little control of it and we can engage with those reviews that are there. I also want to mention that you have a passion of helping our youth who are in foster care. And that is one of the nonprofits areas that I also support. And so just wanted to give a shout out to that. We both also have that passion.
Yes,
And
Passaic County CASA. I have to give them a shout out. That was another aspect of owning your own business, is that you have time, you can control your time. And while I always work with forward-thinking companies who I'm sure if I had said, I need to dedicate some time to XYZ, they probably would have allowed it. In this way, I just feel much more able to contribute. So
right. And I like how you clarified that you can control your time. As a business owner, as everyone here knows that's watching, you don't have more time. You can manage your time depending on the stage that your business is in. So that can be one of your goals, if that's the case. So before we jump in and get into some of the technical parts of the reputation management, I just wanted to share two statistics. One, that 85% of consumers trust online reviews as much as personal recommendations. That means they trust strangers as much as they trust people they know.
Yeah, that's a real killer. when you think about it, because you could have known somebody for years and they say, oh, this dentist down the street is great. um, that holds as much water as a Google review, which is
Right.
shocking.
And it goes, as you said, for dentists as well as products.
Exactly.
Here's
Anything.
another, mhm. Here's another big statistic. Consumers read an average of 7 reviews before trusting a business.
Yeah.
7.
Well, it does speak to accumulating reviews. It also speaks to the repeated exposure driving familiarity and then driving willingness to act. But nothing speaks more to the need to ask for a review, which can be a challenge sometimes, which I'm sure
And
we'll get into.
we will. We're going to help people be more comfortable with that. So before we get into specifically what is reputation management, I'd like to share where reputation management occurs. We are going to talk about reviews as one part of it today. But Cecelia, we're also going to talk about it's your overall brand. It's what's happening on your website. It's what's happening on your social media. What's really important is that you have a core strategy and core brand values and core content, and you are sharing it out in all of those distribution platforms. And then, of course, offline as well. So this topic today will focus a lot on reviews, but it's a full package of reputation management.
I mean, just think about the fact that anything that anybody can see about you online influences how they view you. So all of your properties, whether it's your social media, your, blogs on guest sites or guest blogs on other sites, let's put it that way, or how you might be talked about as a business in different forums, and what your website looks like and the experience there, that is your online branding in a sense. And what we're talking about is an intentional assessment of it and management of it over time. It actually even bumps into SEO because you are creating content that is out there on the web that is creating an impression of what your capabilities are, how you do business, do you deliver, all of those things.
I'd also like to address our HR professionals who will be watching this content.
Mm.
Employees, I should have looked that statistic up. Employee word of mouth is golden. So the messaging that your employees know about your brand and to share is we'll do a whole nother show on that, is
Yeah.
critical. And I'm
Mhm.
sure, I'm going to take a guess that it's the highest source of trust, but they work there, so they must know. And your employee communications, your newsletters, any internal private social media, and any other meetings and such should be sharing the brand as well. So let's define a few components of reputation management, Cecelia, that you think are most important to pay attention to.
Well, clearly, as I mentioned, anything that somebody can see online is a part of your reputation. So whether it is, again, your website, your social media, but yes, your reviews and where those reviews show up. So what we're trying to do is make sure that we're actively monitoring them. So there's pieces to this. If you're doing reputation management, let's think about it from a Fortune 500 standpoint, maybe that, you might be engaging in social listening. You want to know anytime that your brand or your business is mentioned anywhere on the web. And there are many places that it could be. And it's almost far more places, let's say, than anybody can truly do on their own. So you might subscribe to a service that is just looking out for whenever your name is mentioned, what kind of context is it in? You can also do this to monitor your competition, by the way. So, there's another piece to this, which is how am I compared to my next best competitor? Another thing that you might do then is, again, you're doing the social listening, but you might be monitoring all of the social sites just to understand specifically what's going on. And you're looking at, is there a net positive feel or a net negative feel about your message, your brand? And then, of course, looking at reviews, doing the same thing. You're going to be assessing your reviews, and at the same time, you're going to be gathering reviews. So you're always wanting to add to the reviews, and there are tools that will enable you to easily do that as well. Of course, we all know about Google, but there are other tools out there that you could use. So those are the three things, just basically social listening, monitoring what's going on with your brand, even doing a Google alert whenever your brand is mentioned, and then constantly getting new reviews, soliciting new reviews.
And reviews essentially are testimonials. And again, I'll just
Mm-hmm.
keep that a few times through here into internal corporate. These types of things also have to do with your employee feedback as well, and handling them and engaging them. So many people want to know how you can get reviews. Let's talk about that.
Well, it's kind of funny because asking for reviews is something that people feel often awkward about because you're asking somebody to help you in a sense. Maybe you are displaying a bit of vulnerability. But at the same time, asking for reviews is important because if a review is as valued as the opinion of a neighbor that you've known for 20 years, you need a review. And if they're looking at 7 reviews before they make a decision, you need a review. So there are ways to do this. The idea is to make sure that everyone that you've worked with or that you're working with at the end of that engagement, or even as part of an ongoing program, you ask them to provide a review. I suggest that you ask everyone because unfortunately, everybody's going to say yes, but unfortunately, maybe only 20% of them will actually take the time to do it. Everybody is well intentioned, but everyone is busy. So just don't take it personally if it doesn't come through for you. Generally speaking, though, if you feel comfortable enough to ask somebody for a review, they're they're going to say yes. Sometimes people might suggest, well, I'm really not good at, coming up with stuff, so why don't you write one for me? That can be done. They are the ones that have to review it and post it. You don't do that, but you can certainly provide some tips or pointers on what they might do. So I think the main thing is asking for the review. There are services that you can subscribe to that make a review part of the whole, conclusion of your engagement with a client. So let's say that you own a car detailing service and you go to someone's home. At the end of that engagement, there's paperwork that's being signed, but also as part of that, you could incorporate a review process so that you're always getting a review. Some people actually will put a link to Google reviews on their sign off on their email. So they make it very easy for people to deliver a review. I've been in offices where they've, given a website where people can actually go to and leave a review. So it's really, again, the asking and trying to make that as routine and standard as possible so that you can collect a number of reviews rather than rushing around to get reviews when you think you might need a testimonial or two.
Right. Natural is best.
Mm-hmm.
And QR codes are helpful to make that easier these days as well.
Exactly.
So we
Yeah.
mentioned earlier that sometimes people are a little uncomfortable asking for a review. Sometimes
Yeah.
that's because they're afraid of a negative review. Now, there's authenticity in terms of reviews not all being A plus, a 5-star. Certainly you want most of those. But let's talk about engaging with reviews, and let's talk about engaging with positive and negative reviews and really when to engage.
Well, I really think that you should engage with reviews. That's a best practice. Clearly, if somebody's given you a positive review, you can thank them. It's very easy to say thank you for your review. If you're getting a lot of reviews, for example, you work in a high turnover business where you engage with a lot of people and you just don't have time to, you are overwhelmed with the number of reviews. Certainly, if somebody goes out of their way to mention something that is very specific about perhaps a staff member or something that happened and how well it was resolved, that is something that it would be great to come back and thank that person, say that you'll share it with the team, restate the fact that it's always our goal to serve our clients and leave them in a happy place. And we're glad that we did that with you. On the flip side, you have this situation where you might unexpectedly get feedback that you didn't want to get. And I love it. Feedback is a gift. This is something that somebody told me a long time ago. So if nobody tells you that you're doing something that is bothering people, you'll continue to do it. So if somebody has taken the time to tell you that there's a particular experience they had or a particular bump they had in the road of working with you, I would take it seriously and I would look to see if there's a trend. You may have gotten that feedback before. When you start to see trends, it's telling you that there is something going on and it may be something that you'll benefit from addressing. When it comes to actually going back to the person who's giving you that feedback, once again, if it's a gift, you thank them. You thank you for, sharing your experience with me. I am very sorry that you had this experience. It really doesn't meet the standard that we set for our team. We strive to deliver the best in blah, 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 blah. And perhaps we should talk offline and see if we can make this right for you. So you try to take that conversation away from the public arena, but you also want to be seen to be interacting with a negative review. And there is data that suggests that people like to see businesses interact with the feedback that they get. A good number of people will respond positively to feedback that you give and the way you've responded to a negative review. A negative review does not kill you as a business. There was something that talked about, let's say, a restaurant. This was a study where restaurants got 1 or 2 star reviews out of 5 stars. The fact that the restaurant commented and replied to those negative reviews actually increased the likelihood that people would go back to the restaurant and then give a 5-star review. So you can't get there if you're going to kind of, be like a turtle and stay in your shell. You have to kind of reach out and say, thank you, odd experience. I know it. Let me see if we can make this right. And that really just shows an owner who's really in control and wants to do better.
And it does show that people who take the time to complain or provide feedback that might not be positive, they're also, if you don't tend to it, are going to tell more people than the positive experience because they're in a mode of venting. So timeliness is also important. I'd like to have a conversation about who should reply to those reviews online. It should be done in a professional and corporate manner with a certain tone, let's say, or methodology. And so oftentimes a corporate person or a marketing person will be in charge of responding. We go, if there's something that needs something specific said, when we go to the client immediately, we find out if there's a nuance that we should mention. And right now we're with one client in particular who has a lot of sites, we're talking about who should have access to managing that feedback. So there's no right answer, but what do you think about that?
Well, I mean, it really needs to be somebody who understands the voice of the company. And it has to be somebody who understands what the limitations are on the response and somebody that you trust. I mean, if you're a small business, usually it's the owner that manages this. But sometimes even owners aren't, words don't fall out of their mouths that comfortably. And so they may have a team member who's really good at communications. And it's got to be somebody that you trust, clearly. Because again, this is part of your branding. This is part of your online presence. So you don't just leave it to anyone. So, you're right. You do need to take care with that. Generally speaking, you have a process. You may have somebody who owns looking at those reviews and responding to them. You don't want to wait until the last minute and have a fire drill. So it's either going to be you or somebody that you really trust and understand. And if that person's not there, then it's going to be you. You're not going to send it off to the next person, because again, this is much too important for that.
Right. And if you're an entrepreneur, it's you. So
that's why
it is, right? If you're a solopreneur, it's you. And so putting this on your calendar, one of the things that I recommend is making sure you have time scheduled for your marketing, for your content development, and put checking your reviews into that. Really, if you can, you want to have a feedback loop, and you do get an email that says a review has been left if it's on Google or an alert.
Most of the platforms will give you an alert saying either a testimonial has been made or a review has been left, and so you want to look at it right away because timeliness is important. They expect, particularly if you're giving feedback, people expect a comment fairly quickly.
Right.
So, not waiting 3 weeks, but, if that's what's happened, that's what's happened. So still reply, but ideally you would reply, within a few hours of getting a review.
Right.
Absolutely.
And we said that Google is not the only place that reviews can happen. Social
Hmm.
media as well, Facebook,
Hmm.
comments on blog posts, and also
But
I'm sure you're getting, just to follow up offline, there's probably the same kind of feedback coming in. So you might even be able to prepare some common responses, almost like you prepare for FAQs, as a
mhm.
rule, as a guide.
Oh,
So where else?
absolutely.
Mhm.
You can basically say every time, if it's a customer service issue, you can always think about, well, where are the problems going to be? Oh, if I'm a restaurant, it's going to be I had to wait a long time, or it's, what are the failure points in your service? Whatever that is, you can be able to address them. But you don't necessarily need to get that detailed. It's the opportunity to state your service policy, your customer service approach, your ethical approach, what have you. That can be a fairly consistent statement throughout. But you're looking at um, any number of things. I mean, if you're a physician, it could be ZocDoc where a review is left. If you're a restaurant, it could be Yelp, but it also could be a doctor that was reviewed on Yelp. So there are so many little places that people, Open Table, for example, for restaurants. There are all these little review places that can where content or comments can pop up. That's why it's nice to kind of direct people to where you'd like it to be. So, having the Google link available, sharing the Google link, or saying, I love my feedback on LinkedIn, or, yes, I'm on Yelp and I actively manage my Yelp. That that will help you in terms of your time management.
And
But I
time
think the
management.
idea, oh, sorry.
No, I was just going to say time management is a good thing to talk about for a minute
Yeah.
because it can be overwhelming. So you want to figure out the time you can spend on it and
Mhm.
prioritize what you are spending your time on. And reviews, the reason we're talking about it today is it is often overlooked, and it's a great opportunity. And as with many things, we spend a little extra time talking about the negative, but there's also trends in the positive. So please
Mhm.
look at the positive feedback that people are giving you and use those words. We have to remember that people search today uh, verbally, and
Mhm.
the language you may use about something is could be very different from what your client base is using, and catch those words there and think about that for your brand.
Mhm. Yeah, using natural language to search is really important. And in terms of time management, that's, some people, again, they outsource this type of thing, but they're still engaged in the response. You don't necessarily, you're not spending hours responding. The review that requires that type of response is quite rare. It's just an understanding of where you stand and then understanding where do I need to shore up my presence so that ultimately I have that strong image that I want to have. By neglecting it, what happens is it just generally can slide down very quickly, or you'll be surprised by things, and you just don't want to have that happen.
Right, right. So as we
Hmm.
wrap up our time today, the takeaway for me is, as part of your marketing strategy, online and offline, listen to the feedback.
Hmm.
And reputation management is crucial. Just it's personal management, and
Hmm.
it's a brand. Your brand is your voice. Your brand is your tone. Your brand is what you stand for. And incorporate this in what you do. And there is contact information here for Cecelia and myself. We both can help you with your marketing and questions, and we're on LinkedIn and we're on other places where you can reach out and ask questions.
Hmm.
Cecelia, would you like to give a last word on reputation management today?
No, I just think that it is kind of core to your overall strategy. I mean, your strategy is built on the type of business you are, and so, making sure that you control that image as much as you can, I think is the only responsible thing you can do. It's like a fiduciary responsibility if you're that, this is the value of your company, essentially. So there are things you can do. And we've talked about soliciting reviews. We've talked about responding to reviews. We've talked about making sure that you understand how you are perceived. And then the benefit, I think, of doing this for your competition, really understanding where they are, because then that will contribute to your overall understanding of what strategy is a differentiator for you.
And it all will lead to an impact on your revenue, positive or
Absolutely.
negative.
Mhm.
And positive is what we're all aiming for.
Absolutely. Great.
Cecelia, thank you so much for joining me today. We're going to share this content as replays on our social media. There'll be a column on Medium as well. And we hope that you've gained insight that will help you in your business.
Great. Again, thank you for having me, Nancy.